In this video, I'm going to explain third-person point of view. By the end of this video, you'll know how to use the third person's powerful capabilities in your novels, and you'll also learn how to avoid the most common mistakes authors make when using it. Let's get started. First, a definition. Third-person point of view is when the narrator refers to the scene's main character with third-person pronouns. He, she, him, her. Like in this example from Khaled Hosseini's novel, A Thousand Splendid Suns. Maryam had never before worn a burqa. Rashid had to help her put it on. Notice how different this feels from first-person point of view, where the narrator uses first-person pronouns, I and me. Like in this example from the Poisonwood Bible by Barbara Kingsolver. Every day Mama said, "You're going to crack your head wide open." But no, sir. I broke my arm instead. How I did it was spying on the African Communist Boy Scouts. Stark difference, right? The biggest difference is that in first-person point of view, the main character is the narrator. So that would lead us to think in third person, the main character is not the narrator, right? Well, this is the interesting thing about third-person perspective. It's not clear who the narrator is. And this fuzziness actually gives third-person point of view some fascinating possibilities. For example, take a look at this excerpt from Harry Potter and the Sorcerer's Stone, where Harry and Hagrid are walking through Diagon Alley to buy what Harry needs for school. Hagrid was so huge that he parted the crowd easily. All Harry had to do was keep close behind him. They passed bookshops and music stores, hamburger restaurants and cinemas, but nowhere that looked as if it could sell you a magic wand. This was just an ordinary street full of ordinary people. Could there really be piles of wizard gold buried miles beneath them? Who's the narrator here? It seems like a general, undefined speaker until we get to the last line, which feels like we're hearing Harry's direct thoughts. And this vibe continues for the rest of the paragraph, which ends with, "If Harry hadn't known that the Dursleys had no sense of humor, he might have thought so. Yet somehow, even though everything Hagrid had told him so far was unbelievable, Harry couldn't help trusting him." This feels like we're in Harry's head, even though it's not voiced directly as Harry's thoughts, where it would be written like this. "If I hadn't known that the Dursleys had no sense of humor, I might have thought so." And this is the fascinating possibility of third person I was talking about. What you're seeing here, where the narrator is temporarily Harry's own thoughts, is the primary feature of third person, and it's called free indirect discourse. Who's the narrator in Harry Potter? Sometimes it's a general speaker, sometimes it's Harry. With third-person point of view, the author can change the point of view to whoever and wherever it needs to be. You know how some cameras have a zoom lens? You can get in real close if you zoom in all the way, or you can get a big broad view if you zoom all the way out. Third-person point of view is exactly like a zoom lens camera. As we saw in the Harry Potter example, we started off zoomed out with a general storytelling voice. And then the narrative zoomed right into Harry's brain, and the narrative voice became Harry's thoughts, including his way of speaking. Third-person point of view is a zoom lens, and the thing you're zooming in and out of is called narrative distance. And this switching of narrative distance can make for very interesting storytelling. But when writing in third-person point of view, there are some important rules you need to know to make sure you don't confuse the reader. So to learn the rules, next, let's look at the two main categories of third person limited and third person omniscient. And don't be scared by the fancy names, the meanings are actually very simple. First, let's look at third person limited. In this category of third person point of view, the word limited means the narrator only knows what the main character knows. The narrator is limited to one character's thoughts and perceptions. This means that, at least for the current scene, if the main character is in Antarctica, the narrator can't start talking about what's happening in Dallas, unless the main character is watching the news on satellite TV. And if the main character is having an argument with her fellow Antarctica scientist, the narrator can't jump from one character's thoughts and feelings into another character's. Basically, in third person limited, the narrator can't know what the main character doesn't know. Now, why would you want this limitation? Why not get in everyone's head, show the depths of each person's inner life? Well, when you don't have a focal point character limiting the narrator's knowledge, it's hard for the reader to decide who to root for, who to follow, who matters right now. Because in story, when everyone matters in a scene, no one matters. It's easier for a reader to immerse when there's a main character. There's also a sense of mystery when you only know what the focal character knows. The reader finds things out at the same time as the focal character. Now, there's one caveat that you need to know. It is very popular for authors to switch perspectives between chapters or scenes. This is still called third-person limited. The important thing is you don't jump perspectives in the middle of the scene. And this is the perfect time to mention the other category of third-person point of view, third-person omniscient. This very fancy word means all-knowing, because in this point of view, the narrator knows all. For example, look at this excerpt from The Fellowship of the Ring. As for Bilbo Baggins, even while he was making his speech, he had been fingering the golden ring in his pocket, his magic ring that he had kept secret for so many years. As he stepped down, he slipped it on his finger, and he was never seen by any hobbit in Hobbiton again. That last phrase is something you only see in third-person omniscient. How would Bilbo know at the time that he was never seen by any hobbit in Hobbiton again? He doesn't know, but the narrator does, and the narrator is choosing to clue us in on this information that Bilbo doesn't have. We talked about third-person point of view being like a zoom lens. Well, when the narrator conveys broad sweeps of context that no single character would know, the sense it gives is a distant bird's eye view. It's useful for conveying certain vibes, like fairy tales, for instance. But it does make it more difficult to convey the immediate feelings of your focal character. Many older classics of fiction used third-person omniscient, but it's considered an outdated style now. And there's one other way third-person omniscient is different. You're technically allowed to switch between different character perspectives in a single scene. For example, here's an excerpt from Hemingway's The Old Man and the Sea. The old man had taught the boy to fish, and the boy loved him. Others of the older fishermen looked at him and were sad, but they did not show it. See how the first paragraph shares the boy's inner feelings, and the next shares the inner feelings of others, two different perspectives in one scene. It's difficult to use this feature of third-person omniscient without confusing the reader. So consider this an advanced technique you can explore. Now, beginning authors make several common mistakes with third-person point of view that make their novels far less interesting. So next, we'll look at 3 common errors so you can avoid these and keep your readers engaged. But first, let me know in the comments, what is the last book you read, and does it use first-person or third-person point of view? Okay, the first common error is called head hopping. Many beginning authors jump into other characters' brains in the middle of a scene without even thinking about it. The problem here is the reader needs a focal character's perspective to know who they're supposed to be following. Bouncing around weakens the stakes of the scene because you can literally see from the perspective of both sides of an argument. Great when you're a mediator helping people get along, bad when you're trying to make conflict as powerful as possible. So when you're writing a scene, stay in one character's brain and allow the limited perspective to raise the tension. Our next common mistake is changing the narrative distance too abruptly. Take a look at this example. The wind howled through the dark night. Would he ever make it out of here alive? It kind of feels like we're missing a link in the chain of logic here. The first sentence is giving general context, and the next is right inside the character's head. It zooms in too quickly. If you're going from general scene setting to the character's thoughts, you need an intermediary sentence that references the character and what they're doing. Then you can get in their head. For example, see what happens when I add an intermediary sentence. The wind howled through the dark night. Edgar rubbed his arms for warmth and squinted at the distant trees through the fog. Would he ever make it out of here alive? This middle sentence signals to the reader that we're starting to zoom in our narrative lens from a very general view down into the main character's experience. So when you want to go deeply into your character's thoughts and feelings, first use a sentence to direct the reader's attention to your character so they know it's coming. And finally, our last common error is not getting close enough in the character's head. Beginning writers don't use this potential, but third-person point of view can give as intimate a perspective as first person. As an example where the narrator could have gone deeper into the character's head, look at this excerpt from Harry Potter. What Harry feared most was that he might not be able to find the mirror room again. A lot of times words like feared, thought, felt actually create unnecessary distance between the reader and the character's mind. Rather than telling the reader what the character is feeling, it's more immersive to show the fear, thoughts, and feelings. Here's what the Harry Potter sentence would look like in deep point of view. What if he couldn't find the mirror room again? See how that feels more like Harry's immediate feelings rather than what Harry feared most was ... When you're all the way in the character's head like this, it's called deep point of view. Of course, this is not to pick on J.K. Rowling. She's probably chosen to maintain some narrative distance to give Harry Potter a fairy tale storytelling vibe. But in general, if you're not giving readers the chance to experience the character's inner life on a deep level, you may be missing an opportunity to immerse your reader. So you now know about third-person point of view and how to avoid some of the most common pitfalls. If you're just getting started writing, I recommend watching this video next, where I share the essential steps to completing your first novel. Please like and subscribe if you enjoyed this video, and thanks for watching. Peace.